What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a minute since I made some videos, but one, we got a lack of new content, and two, I was very busy with school and work and everything, so but we finally got some new stuff. They had a Disney investor meeting on Thursday as of me making this video. When we talked about all the new upcoming projects, they said they were talking about Captain Marvel 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. They finally said that they have a director for Fantastic Four. Just basically a lot of news, and then they also dropped a couple of trailers. So in today's videos I'm going to be breaking down and reacting to the Loki trailer, and then also I have a separate video after this for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier trailer. So let's get into it. So the opening part of the trailer goes back to the Avengers Endgame cutscene where the Avengers are at the Battle of New York and they're trying to retrieve the Tesseract so that they can get the cube from there, or the Infinity Stone, and then put together the gauntlet. Obviously the plan goes wrong. Hulk ends up knocking out Iron Man with the briefcase, and then the Tesseract slides across the floor. Loki is able to pick it up and then essentially teleport out of there, which is the beginning of what looks like the beginning of this show. And then it cuts to the scene where he's like traveling through the Bifrost, like across the dimensions, and it's very much reminiscent of the scene in Doctor Strange when the Ancient One's kind of walking him through, like expanding his mind into the fact that he is just a simple person, a singular being inside a vast universe and vast multiverse.
He looks alright to me. You think you know how the world works? You think that this material universe is all there is?
And that's exactly what this looks like. It looks like Loki's going to be able to somehow bounce into another, that's technically a different timeline than the one that we have all experienced throughout the MCU. So it's just him being able to kind of manipulate the world around him within his own universe now, because that universe is a branched timeline. We've never seen any of the events that are about to occur. So then the next scene cuts over and it's Loki waking up in a sand pit, or not a pit, just in the desert. It's very reminiscent of the Iron Man 1 scene when he flies out of the cave and he's just laying there in the sand, like realizing that he survived. But he gets greeted by, it looks like, some natives or some indigenous people. So somehow I feel like they're gonna retcon the abilities of the actual Tesseract to not only allow him to travel through space, but also somehow manipulate space and time. Because up until this day, we've only known that people could travel through space, right? So when Thanos had the space gem, when he was on the ship in Infinity War, and then he blows it up, and Thor's there left to die, he just uses the space stone, and then he just teleports out of there. But it looks like in this case, or at least in the show, Loki's going to be able to somehow manipulate it, either with his magic or whatever, to also travel through space and time. And then this will allow him to hit different points in history of his universe and somehow manipulate the events that occur in there.
You're taking me somewhere to kill me.
No, I'm taking you someplace to talk.
Where I lie, don't like to talk.
But you do like to lie, which you just did. Because we both know you love to talk. Talky.
How long have you been here?
I don't know, it's hard to say. Time passes differently here in the TVA.
What does that mean?
You'll catch up.
The next scene cuts over to Loki in the in an elevator with Owen Wilson, who is one of the time variance or TVA, like staff members or whatever, and from the comics, TVA is the Time Variance Authority. So it's almost like, I feel like when I saw this, it reminds me of like Rick and Morty almost, and how like if they time travel and they change different events in the past, they have a specific set group of an organization, for example the TVA, that monitors all these time discrepancies and time variations, and that they have to go in there and stop that from happening because they have a specific flow of time that cannot be altered. So I feel like that's what the TVA is. And the way he says, Loki, you just love to talk and talk and talk, just kind of reminds me that these guys have been surveillancing Loki for the past, up to the events of the Avengers in 2014, because Loki does have that god complex. He really does want to be like the ruler of the world, and I'm pretty sure the Time Variance Authority has kept an eye on him to make sure that if he steps out of line, they gotta correct him. So the next scene cuts over, and it's a guy in a black hood, and he's holding like he's holding a lantern, drops on the floor, starts a fire, and it's kind of like just a bunch of chaos basically. I'm pretty sure this is our first look at Kang the Conqueror. He was cast into the show earlier this year. They confirmed it. And for those of you who don't know Kang the Conqueror, he's essentially like a time traveling villain. He is like a future grandson, great grandson or whatever, of Mr. Fantastic, and he gets fascinated with time travel and wanting to go meet the Avengers, and essentially becomes a villain. It's very similar to like the Flash and Reverse Flash storyline, where the Reverse Flash was obsessed with the Flash and he wanted to become just like him and become his greatest hero. So he reverse engineered the Flash suit and his technology, and then he became the Reverse Flash, becoming his enemy from the future. That's what this feels like. And now that I'm thinking about it, it almost looks like Loki might almost have to team up with the TVA and try to stop him, because he's the one that's actually manipulating the time stream and the events that happen and all that. As you see further in the trailer, there's a bunch of chaos, like New York is destroyed and just a whole bunch of shit goes down. So I almost feel like Loki might have to team up with them at some point, and Kang the Conqueror is actually the main villain of this series.
Glorious.
Alrighty, so the next scene goes over and it shows Loki, essentially he's having like his trial in court, and it's this lady standing in front of like she's at like an altar, and behind her she has three heads, all different faces, and I almost want to say that this looks like the Living Tribunal, the guy, like the god of judgment basically in the Marvel comic universe, but it almost has me feeling like it's like a cult, like they are like the Living Tribunal, like worshippers and followers. For those of you who don't know who the Living Tribunal is, he essentially is like a cosmic being who exists within the multiverse. So unlike an Iron Man who exists in our universe and then every other multiverse, the Living Tribunal, he is one being that exists in all of the multiverses. And essentially what he has done in the comics, he passes judgment on life. So for instance, in Infinity War, when they were fighting Thanos on Titan, there's supposed to be a cutscene where Doctor Strange kind of takes Thanos to like a mental trip, and he gets to go see the Living Tribunal, and the Living Tribunal has to pass judgment on Thanos and say, what you're doing is is wrong. I'm gonna stop it all right here. I have the power to just completely disintegrate you just with the thought. Essentially, he's just one of the strongest beings in the universe, and he passes judgment on whether or not what somebody is doing is correct, and or not even necessarily correct if he just agrees with what somebody's doing. So I have a feeling that the TVA and this organization that Loki has gotten into worships him, and they really want to follow his like ideology. So they want to maybe punish Loki, and then Loki can finagle his way into say, you know what, I'll work with you guys, or whatever the case may be. So the next scene cuts over and shows Owen Wilson and Loki in like a surveillance room, and they're basically going over all the events that Loki has lived up to up until this point. They show like Loki in the Battle of New York, and the ending scene where they're all surrounding him and Hawkeye has the bow on him, and Loki says, you know, I think I'll have that drink now. And this just reiterates the fact that they have been keeping an eye on him. It's almost like the helicarriers from Winter Soldier, how anybody who was a threat, according to the algorithm, they kept their eyes on, and they had a contingency plan to kill him off. That's kind of like what these guys are doing. At the Time Variance Authority, they've kept an eye on Loki. They know he's a bad manipulator through his magic and all this. The same way Doctor Strange said, you know, I'm a guardian of magic, and your brother needs to get out of here, when he was talking to Thor. So clearly Loki has his bad sets of experiences that people want to keep an eye on. Alright, so coming down to the end of the trailer, it cuts into just a montage of like what looks like the end of the world. They have like crazy colors. It looks like very Lovecraftian. Like if you've seen the Lovecraft country show or county, I don't know what the hell it is, but it looks like just the typical end of the world, and it shows like different points in time. So I'm assuming there could be different events that lead to the end of the world throughout the history of this show, and it could be them trying to go back in time, prevent that from happening, and then they got to go back in time again and prevent another event from happening. But it cuts over to a scene of New York, and it's like gone to shit, like completely destroyed, as if like the Battle of New York, the Chitauri invasion actually ended up winning or whatever. Loki's just standing in like debris, and you can actually see the Avengers Tower in the background, and it is like completely destroyed. So I'm curious to see, like, you know, the events that lead up to that, and how they end up reneging that whole thing, or what ends up happening. But you can definitely tell that there's a bigger villain at cause, because as much as Loki's a villain, he really is just like, he's a manipulator. I don't think he can do that level of damage on his own. There has to be a greater force here.
Brother, I'm down. You'd better be ready.
Alright, so then on the final part of the trailer, before it breaks off into the Loki title of the show, it just goes through some more chaos, some more fight scenes, and then Loki's talking to Heimdall, saying, you know, you better be ready. I'm about to jump out of this plane, and I need you to get that Bifrost on me, so you know I can survive and somehow teleport to Asgard, or teleport to wherever the hell I need to go. So I'm curious to see like what his relationship with, you know, the Asgardians are, and Heimdall, because to this point we haven't seen the Loki that has his like redemption arc that took place in Thor Ragnarok, right? We haven't seen him develop as a character and really like learn to appreciate Thor as a brother and feel like a Asgardian in a sense, instead of like the adopted son that was never worshipped or anything like that. So yeah, I'm interested to see in this show how they explain his relationship with the rest of the Asgardians.
Come on. What did you expect?
And the final little post-credit scene, whatever you want to call it, after the title card, it shows Loki like in his like decked out suit. He got his little horns on. It says "Vote for Loki" like as the president. I'm not gonna lie, he looks like a boss here. It's very reminiscent of like the Joker. He's kind of like the king of madness, and he's like, vote for me because I can do these things for you. But yeah, overall, I'm excited for this show. I'm so happy that we finally got some new content. I don't think they said when they would be released, but regardless, we have Wonder Woman coming out on the 25th of December. Then we have a couple days, and then we go into WandaVision, which starts on January 15th, goes for 6 weeks, and then we go straight into Falcon and the Winter Soldier that starts in March. So I'm assuming if we go 6 weeks from March, that's when the Loki series will drop, because it looks like Marvel, Disney, and all these streaming services really want to hone in the audience and keep them basically all year round, as opposed to like, you know, when you had your HBO subscription, you'd watch Game of Thrones and then you were basically done for a whole year. Instead of that, it's just back-to-back shows, and you know, you can keep the subscribers and even get new subscribers. So like I said, guys, overall I'm excited. Let me know what you guys thought of the trailer. What are you most excited about? What are you questioning the most? And like I said, keep an eye out for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier trailer breakdown that I'm doing, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.